There's a theory of history. It's called the Great Man Theory. It basically says history is forged by great men. The George Washingtons, the Alexander the Greats, the Jesse Waterses. Individuals drive the fate of civilization. And there's other theories about everything. Economics is the main driver. I personally believe geography plays a big factor, but leaders define reality. And we celebrate when good ones succeed, and we celebrate when bad ones fail. We root for failure. And the best part about the United States of America is we can get rid of our own leaders if enough of us vote. Now, it can be frustrating when you live next to idiots, because idiots put idiots in charge. But even sometimes idiots realize they picked an idiot. And that's what happened last night in Chicago. Chicago has been living in a nightmare for years. And this morning, the city woke up to good news. The Windy City's getting a new mayor.
Thank God.
And tonight we're going to tell you about what the Chicago election means for the Democratic Party. It's actually good news. It's good news for the country because prime time's noticed a trend. But first, let's dance on Lori's grave. She can sing. Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Oh, and she can dance. She can even deliver pizza.
Did you order thousands of new jobs and a pepperoni?
If only Smollett had ordered pizza that night instead of going out for Subway. The kiss of death, though, for Lori in Chicago is when she crossed the Italians. She took down a Christopher Columbus statue and then rubbed it in the Italians' face.
The mayor said she had a bigger male body part than the Park District lawyers on the call and Italians, and that she claimed to have the biggest male body part in the city.
After dissing the Italians, Lori pulled a Pelosi and went to the hair salon during COVID when no one else was allowed to.
I'm the public face of this city. I'm on national media and I'm out in the public eye. And, I'm a person who I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself. And so I got a haircut.
So Lori didn't really realize she wasn't hired for her looks. She was hired because of her identity. The first black lesbian mayor of Chicago. Oh, you better believe she shatters 2 glass ceilings. But Chicago quickly found out that the woman they hired for her race was a racist.
When I look at it across this podium, as I'm doing now, I don't see much in the way of diversity. The fact that the City Hall press corps is overwhelmingly white, has very little in the way of diversity, is an embarrassment.
So the black lesbian mayor would only talk to black reporters. She wouldn't even talk to white lesbians. Now, who can forget Lori's costumes? She dressed up as a leprechaun on St. Paddy's Day and the Rona Destroyer on Halloween. Lightfoot's great at a costume party, not really great in the mayor's office. She could do it all, well, except fight crime and cut her hair. And now she's paying the price. Lightfoot's the first Chicago mayor to lose re-election in 40 years. She only got 17% of the vote after spending the last 4 years turning Chicago into a third-world city. Murder's up 60%, and you can't blame that on COVID. Gangbangers were waging war broad daylight. Kids got mowed down in drive-bys on their way to school. Chicago streets were soaked in blood. But Lori was in denial.
Crime is not out of control in our city. In fact, crime is on the decline. All of our major indices show that the decline in crime and our homicides and our shootings year over year are down. That's a fact, sir.
So that was a lie. Lightfoot tried to defund the police after the BLM riots tore through it, and then blamed business owners for getting robbed.
Some of the retailers downtown in Michigan Avenue, I will tell you, I'm disappointed that they're not doing more to take safety and make it a priority. For example, we still have retailers that won't institute plans like having security officers in their stores, making sure that they've got cameras that are actually operational, locking up their merchandise at night, chaining high-end bags. These purses seem to be something that is attracting a lot of attention on these organized retail theft units.
Turns out victims don't like being blamed for getting shot, robbed, and raped. But that's not why she lost. She lost because of racism. Here she is, quote, "I'm a black woman, let's not forget. Certainly, folks, frankly, don't support us in leadership roles." Whoa, did she forget she shattered double glass ceilings just 4 years ago? Lori's the first black lesbian mayor in Chicago. Now all of a sudden, everyone's racist and sexist? In 2019, she won by 75% of the vote. A third of the city's black, half are women. Or as Smollett calls it, MAGA country. Where did all these new racist, sexist voters come from? Lori's just ripping a page out of Crooked's playbook. You remember, if you win, you shatter. If you lose, it was the sexists or the Russians. Kamala and Stacey did the same thing. What happened is simple. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. People just want to feel safe. And we're seeing it all over the country. In the midterms, Republicans won the House with a common sense message. Less crime, more police. They flipped those deep blue seats in New York, even Oregon, proving voters see crime's the problem, no matter what the media says.
They have now turned to a strategy that sensationalizes crime, that weaponizes crime, and that racializes crime to unfortunately engage a certain demographic of their voting base.
All they do is talk about crime, crime, crime. But crime is not on the rise. It's actually going down under Joe Biden.
These are master manipulators. They have this conspiracy going all across America to try and convince people that in democratic states they're not as safe. Well, guess what? They're also not only election deniers, they're data deniers.
All right, so the crime deniers say crime's not happening, and if you say it is, you're a conspiracy theorist. And nobody bought that except Lori Lightfoot, and now she's out of a job. And the pro-police Chicago Democrat, Paul Vallis, is in the lead. He's going to win. He says he's going to make Chicago the safest big city in America. That promise gets you elected every time, Democrat, Republican. It worked for Rudy, worked for Bloomberg here. And the defund the police has failed everywhere. It's poison. Democrats are finally starting to realize it, and the smart ones are moving away from it. And that's a good sign for the country. America's heading in the right direction. Let's turn it over to Dan Bongino, host of Unfiltered on Saturday nights. Am I being mean to Lori? Am I being not a classy guy, Dan?
Nah, man, she really sucks. I mean, how do you win pretty much every ward in the city in 2019 in one of the biggest landslides you're going to see in a mayor's race, and then finish third in a primary? Even worse, Jesse, behind the number 2 guy who was literally a defund the police guy. Like, you have to really suck. I mean, everybody has to be like, okay, you drove Boeing out, Citadel out, crimes through the roof. You can't even deliver a pizza. Like, we're going to vote third. We're going to vote you even behind the defund the police guy, even though policing is the biggest issue. I mean, listen, it got so bad. I'm glad you included that. You totally stole my thunder, by the way. I can't believe she's going full Juicy Smollett, by the way. That's amazing.
You never go full juicy.
You never go full juicy. I mean, didn't she learn from Robert Downey Jr.? And you don't go full juicy. You don't say it was racist.
She's like Chicago's MAGA country. All of these racists and sexists, they didn't want me in there.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no,
Next thing you know, she's going to be telling a story about she was visiting the subway at 3 a.m. and some guy with bleach was. I mean, this is insane. Racism in New York. You know, she violated the golden rule of politics. Having been a cop at one point and having lived in New York City, I'm intimately familiar with this. The golden rule of politics is all politics are local. And Jesse, there's nothing more local than crime. There just isn't. I lived through it in New York in an 8-1 Democrat to Republican city where Giuliani beat Dinkins and then won re-election by 18 points. as a Republican, I mean, it's not hard to figure out that people don't want to get robbed, raped, and killed.
And
I mean,
not only that,
this
Dan,
isn't complicated.
You never cross the Italians. I mean, the Italians are the third rail of politics. You got to keep the Italians in your pocket. Once you start tearing down Columbus statues and bragging you have the biggest unit in Chicago, goodbye.
Listen, I may get fired from Fox after this. That's okay. My last name is Bongino. Probably don't want to tell him who's got a bigger crank. I'm not sure that's a good campaign pitch. I'm really not. I don't know how many Italians you're going to coax into voting for you at that point.
When the black lesbian mayor says she has a bigger unit than the Italians in Chicago, the deep dish guys,
clearly not.
The sausage and pepper guys, the Columbus guys. No, that's the kiss of death.
Didn't work out. Not with 17% of the vote. That's not that big of a.
So this is good news for the country, because this is a trend. You saw some of these radical DAs are dropping like flies, and you're starting to see the Democrats get less crazy. Is that all we can ask for, Dan? Less crazy Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're never, let's be honest, the country's never going to be, 100% Republican. There's always going to be some kind of political disparities in views. We get that. So, yes, you want your old JFK, Bill Clinton Democrat back, because I've got friends. My family still lives in New York, and the number one rule of the Dan Bongino radio show is don't get dead. And I don't want them to get dead either. So, yes, if we can get just less crazy, that would be a big step forward. But, they know what works, Jesse. I mean, they know broken windows policing that was done in L.A. and New York. They know it works. They just refuse to do it. And a lot of people, sadly, are getting dead and getting mugged and getting raped and robbed. And I don't know. I saw that clip, by the way, Joy Behar and others and the MSNBC and the other crazies on the network. I encourage you, keep doing that, Joy. Keep telling everyone, Kathy Hochul and everyone else, that they're imagining the mugger who beat out of them on the train, or the guy who followed them home into their home invasion in the house, or stole. Keep telling them that's not real. That is a golden plan for election in 2024. It's going to be just great.
I hope she's never canceled, because boy, is she useful. Dan Bongino.
Oh, she's great.
The golden rule. And we know about the last name. Thank you very much, Dan.
That's right. I'll see you later.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. One thing we have learned after many years in the news business is that every once in a while you've got to eat some crow and admit that despite your best intentions, you were completely wrong about something. Tonight is one of those times. For nearly 4 years now, we've been under the impression, an impression we regularly communicated to you, our viewers, that actor Jussie Smollett was the greatest BS artist since Bill Clinton, that he was a transparent race hoaxer who fooled the dummies in the national media but could not fool us. That's what we thought. We thought Jussie Smollett was a liar. You remember his story. It did seem unlikely. Late one night in sub-zero temperatures in a snowstorm, Jussie Smollett decided to venture out for a sandwich in downtown Chicago when he was, as people are, accosted by two physically enormous Trump supporters from Africa who somehow recognized him despite his ski hat from his part in a little-known musical drama series called Empire, because campy musical dramas are apparently huge with musclehead Trump voters from Nigeria. So they knew him instantly, right away. These two crazed African right-wing maniacs also correctly guessed that Jussie Smollett had voted for Hillary Clinton, and they hated that. And so, as Trump voters so often do, they began pummeling him about the face and screaming, "This is MAGA country!" Because that's one of the things people typically say about downtown Chicago. It's MAGA country. Then, because they were still angry, they're always angry, these Nigerian racists poured bleach on Jussie Smollett, threw a noose around his neck, and then ran off into the night howling with demented glee. Here's how Jussie Smollett described it.
And I see the attacker masked, and he said, "This MAGA country," punches me right in the face. I was just jumped, and then I look down and I see that there's a rope around my neck.
Yep. We're going to be honest with you. We had some questions about that story. It just didn't sound right to us. Something was off. Crazed Nigerian Trump voters assaulting liberals in downtown Chicago? How common is this? Chicago has 50 aldermen, and not a single one of them is a Republican. Chicago has not had a Republican mayor in 80 years. Donald Trump got 12% of the vote in Chicago. didn't really seem like MAGA country. But boy, were we wrong. Not only is Chicago a right-wing Donald Trump stronghold, last night the QAnon army came for Lori Lightfoot. Lightfoot, of course, is the mayor of Chicago and a consummate neoliberal. She's the one who prevented Chicago cops from chasing criminals on foot because chasing criminals is racist. She's the mayor who plunged Chicago even further into debt for a good cause to pay for the Department of Climate and Environmental Equity. And in fact, Lightfoot's commitment to equity was so profound that she banned white reporters from talking to her. She took down not one, but 2 statues of Christopher Columbus, who was a racist. So you would think if anybody would be safe in Chicago, which is roughly 100% Democratic Party voters, it would be Lori Lightfoot. Oh, but no. According to Lori Lightfoot, the extreme MAGA Republicans, the ones who tried to bleach Jussie Smollett, activated their sleeper cells around the city, and they showed up at the polls en masse, which means lots of them at once. And the effect was to make Lori Lightfoot the first Chicago mayor in 40 years to lose re-election. As Lightfoot put it last night at her non-victory party, these MAGA Republicans hated her not because of what she did, but because of who she is. Asked directly whether her defeat in the Democratic primary had been unfair, Lightfoot answered this way, quote, "I'm a black woman in America. Of course." Now, one of the many tragedies here, and there are so many layers of tragedy, is that Lori Lightfoot, insightful as she's always been, saw this racist insurgency coming for years. Here she was in 2021.
Mayor, in recent months, there have been questions raised about your temperament and your reaction to criticism. Tribune editorial used the term irascible. How much of this do you think might have to do with the fact that you're a woman, and specifically a black woman?
About 99% of it.
Yeah. Because the thing is, there are no women in Chicago. It's an entirely male and right-wing city. And so all opposition to Lori Lightfoot derived from her race and gender. It's not that people were angry about violent crime in Chicago. That never crossed her mind. No. Here instead is her explanation from last night's concession speech.
Obviously, we didn't win the election today, but I stand here with my head held high and a heart full of gratitude. I'm grateful that we worked together to remove a record number of guns off our streets, reduce homicides, and started making real progress on public safety.
Obviously, you didn't win. That's true. You got spanked like the bad little mayor you were. But according to the Chicago Police Department, we're also happy she was mayor because she made the city a lot better. Here's what the police said in a statement, quote, "Over the past 3 years, robberies, burglaries, and thefts hit record lows in Chicago." Each of these crime categories saw decreases not seen for the last 50 years. Oh, it's a lot safer than it's ever been in 50 years. Is that true? Well, let's check the same police department's own statistics, and here they are. From 2019 to 2023 in Chicago, robberies went up, not down, actually up 27%. Theft, nearly 40%. Murder, kind of a significant category, 59%. How about motor vehicle theft? Is that up or down? Oh, it's up 270%. So if you'd average all that out, that means all crime is up 33%. There were 300 more murders by gunshot in 2021 than there were in 2019. There were 2,000 more shooting victims. There were 30% more overall shootings. So that's not a safer city, actually. That's a much more dangerous city that people are fleeing for their very lives. What's interesting is that the people in charge of making the police safer are still working to make it much more dangerous. The top prosecutor in the city, Lori Lightfoot's ally, Kim Foxx, is rejecting thousands of felony cases every year, just not prosecuting crimes. In 2022, for example, Chicago prosecutors had a total of 20,000 felony cases come in the door, and out of those, they rejected right out of hand 2,000. They pursued, out of 20,000 cases, just 1,900 to indictment, not to conviction, just to indictment, charging people. And those numbers are not an anomaly. They're similar for every other year of Lori Lightfoot's historically disastrous tenure as mayor. And what's happening? Well, people are fleeing Chicago, as noted, because they don't want to get killed. And you can see that in the home prices. Where are home prices highest in America? Of the 12 highest priced home markets in America, 9 are in Florida, because people are fleeing there. The opposite is true of Chicago. The median home price is less than the median home price in the country as a whole. In fashionable Chicago, the median home price in Chicago is $270,000. So who did this? Well, it was a group effort, but Lori Lightfoot was the mayor. But it's not her fault. You know whose fault it is? Businesses and residents, pedestrians. They made themselves easy targets. Watch.
I'm disappointed that they're not doing more to take safety and make it a priority. For example, we still have retailers that won't institute plans like having security officers in their stores, making sure that they've got cameras that are actually operational, locking up their merchandise at night, chaining high-end bags. These purses seem to be something that is attracting a lot of attention on these organized retail theft units.
Wait, what? Did she just blame the stores for getting robbed? How is that different from saying, well, you're wearing a halter top? Of course you got raped. I mean, it's not different, actually. It's blaming the victim. It's disgusting. When was the last time you saw a mayor of a city blame crime victims for being victimized? Well, you just saw Lori Lightfoot do it. So crime is no longer punished, by and large, in Chicago, unless you disrespect Lori Lightfoot's authority. And in that case, you went straight to jail. Watch.
Now, I've directed Superintendent Brown to order all police districts to give special attention to these parties. And this is how it's going to be. We will shut you down, we will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you, and we will take you to jail. Period.
We will take you to jail. We'll arrest you and take you to jail. Not if you shoot somebody. If you break Lori Lightfoot's COVID law. But of course, COVID law didn't apply to her because why would dictators follow their own edicts? And so Lori Lightfoot immediately broke the state's stay-at-home order to get a haircut. And when she was busted getting her haircut, not a very good haircut, we'll have to say, she blamed, of course, everybody else.
I'm the public face of this city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye. And you know, I'm a person who I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself, and so I got a haircut.
So now Lori Lightfoot is gone. Who comes next? We have no idea. We don't live in Chicago. We're not even going to speculate on the state of local politics in that city. All we know is the most flamboyantly horrible mayor in the country was punished. The system worked. And if it worked in Chicago, maybe it could work in New Orleans, where LaToya Cantrell is quickly destroying one of the most charming cities in the world. But part of us, if we're being honest, will miss Lori Lightfoot. Despite all the human suffering she caused, there's part of us that kind of enjoyed it. By embodying every one of her party's excesses over the past 4 years, Lori Lightfoot inadvertently helped to expose them. Here you had a complete buffoon, someone who ran around bragging about having a large penis. We're just telling you what she said. Somehow running one of the greatest cities in the world. At times it didn't seem like even Lori Lightfoot could believe she was mayor. She clearly didn't really care for the job. Here she is.
Come on, oh baby, don't you wanna go? Night, yeah, all we need is us.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Happy Halloween. Rona destroyers. And I'm happy to report I'm calling out the census cowboy.
Just save the tape. Save the tape. That's always our counsel from May of 2020 till now, March 1st of 2023. American politicians, the entire class, have gone completely insane, and a lot of it is caught on video, and future generations won't believe it when you tell them, so save the tape. But tonight we're going to celebrate. A lot of people have spent a lot of time over the years trying to get rid of this mayor, and we would say at the top of that list is Chicago Alderman, our friend Raymond Lopez, who joins us tonight for an after-action report. Congratulations, Alderman Lopez, on what happened last night. I have no idea what's going to happen next, but it's worth pausing for a moment to say democracy worked, is it not?
Absolutely, Tucker. Good evening. And before we start, let me just say our hearts and prayers are with an officer in Chicago tonight that was shot in the line of duty in the most dangerous of American cities right now. But with what happened with yesterday's election, democracy worked. And the pendulum, I believe, is starting to swing in the right direction, back to the middle, back towards common sense, where the outrageous policies of woke narratives and agendas are coming to an end. And I think that we have one more chance in Chicago, one more hurdle to reach, where we finally put this to rest, where we can have common sense prevail across the entire city, where the law-abiding citizens are the ones that we're fighting for, and that where the city is no longer safe for criminals, but for the good people of the city of Chicago.
You always set the most basic possible standards for governance, like can you walk outside your house without worrying about getting shot to death? And I think that's the place to start. So do you think, you said there's one more chance, is there a candidate who you think would uphold that standard?
Yes, I think we have a runoff in 6 weeks in the city of Chicago because nobody got the majority of the votes yesterday, one of which is Paul Vallis, the former CPS school CEO and former budget director for the city of Chicago. He's backed by law enforcement, supports all our first responders, and is basically billing himself as a problem solver. His opponent is the Cook County Commissioner, Brandon Johnson, who is super left, tied with our teachers union, and his claim to fame is being able to take away the background checks for renters so that landlords don't know who they're renting to.
Come on.
Just yesterday would not disavow looting in the city of Chicago as a justifiable means. So I think we have some pretty clear choices in Chicago. It's just up to the voters to not fall for the narratives, not fall for the race baiting and gaslighting, but to focus on what we need to do to put our city back together.
So one candidate is for restoring safe streets, the other won't disavow looting. So it seems like a pretty clear choice. Alderman Lopez, I hope you'll come back with an update on that race. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And congratulations.
Thank you, Tucker.